Home is where the heart is. It's our most valuable possession and the one place where we should feel safe. So what happens when it comes under threat?
Oh my word.
When it rains, it's borderline a disaster.
And when disasters devastate not just your home, but your life.
It felt like the guts and the soul of the house had been ripped out.
Coming up, in Essex, an historic home is drowning in a sea of human waste.
It's like some sort of horror movie. You hear these rats scurrying through into your house.
A stranger's split-second mistake brings a family home crashing down.
It was just like a bomb's gone off. It was awful.
And there's trucking hell in a sleepy Lancashire location.
We didn't expect in 4 years to finish up on the M1.
Christine and Alan Longworth are living a nightmare.
These are not your average wagons. These are huge.
Their lives have been made a misery since a waste facility opened just down the road from their home in West Horton, near Bolton in Lancashire.
Look at the size of this. My son doesn't want this house. He can't even stand being in it anymore. It's breaking the family up.
This is a far cry from the picture-perfect life they've enjoyed for the past 19 years.
When we bought this house, it was completely secluded. When you walked out of the garden gate, you walked onto a cobbled road, which was just wide enough to get either a wagon down or a car down. I used to love going to work and coming home and closing my front door and thinking, I feel happy here.
Then one morning, 11 months ago, their peaceful existence was shattered.
We woke up to chainsaws. When we looked through the bedroom window, there was 4 or 5 gentlemen across the road with chainsaws, cutting all the trees down. And we said, what's happening? And they said, we're widening the road.
Christine discovered the owner of a small scrapyard located just down the road had decided to lease the land out to a waste management company, which meant wider roads for wider vehicles.
There's just no let up at all. There's nothing. All we get all day is wagons. It then just went horrendous. There was more and more traffic on the road, to the extent where they were running from early morning to last thing at night.
Christine and Alan were unaware of any plans to change the use of the land. After a few weeks, Christine realised the facility was here to stay, which meant so was the constant stream of big, noisy lorries. So, she decided to take a stand and complain to the council.
We were asked to keep diaries by the council. This is from the 17th of the 9th, 14. We've got here one going out at 4:20, one at 5:20, 2 at 5:24, one at 6:03, one at 7:08. And the amount of trucks, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in less than an hour and a half. We weren't sleeping at all during the night. And that lasted for a number of months. It's not easy to put into words just how you feel when you can't go to sleep. It's just not acceptable at all. It's as though we don't exist. What's bothering me more than anything else is when we bought this house, we looked on it as an investment as well. But at the moment, this house isn't worth a brick because no one will buy this house with the extent of what's going on down the lane.
After 5 months of complaining to the council, the waste company was banned from operating during the night. The situation greatly improved, but Christine and Alan soon got whiff of a new nuisance.
We started to get a smell, a really bad smell.
In Lancashire, squatters annihilate a man's home.
It was my first house, and it was like your first love, in a way.
Leaving the owner 10 grand out of pocket.
When we first went in, it was totally disgusting, totally wrecked, rubbish everywhere, horrifying.
Michael Mason grew up around Blackpool, where his family ran a successful arcade business which Michael joined in the 1990s. At the age of 24, he decided to buy his first house.
Looked at loads of places, I looked at about 25 different places, and then finally found this one that I really liked. It was quite a typical first house. It had some nice original features, fireplaces, things like that, and it was on a nice, quiet little street, which I liked. Just everything about it felt nice as soon as I walked in the place.
The new homeowner had big plans.
I immediately decided to try and turn it into a little palace, and probably went a bit over the top with some of it.
Michael lovingly brought the house's original features back to life.
It was a lovely original wooden floor, so over the next 3 or 4 weeks we blasted it right back down to bare boards. And when it was finished it looked absolutely fantastic, a real sort of focal point. I was really, really happy with it.
For the next 5 years, Michael put every spare minute of his time and money into doing up his property. But then, out of the blue, he was offered a great job in London as a financial controller. But he was keen to keep hold of his home. So Michael decided to rent out the house.
For the time that it was tenanted, all those years, I didn't really have to do much at all. The tenants were really great. It all seemed to work okay. You know, the mortgage was being paid. I had, 100 quid, 200 quid extra a month.
But in March 2014, things took a severe turn for the worse.
Stopped paying the rent in March. In mid-December, I finally got the keys back. We had to go to court to get bailiffs and all this nonsense. So the bailiffs came and evicted somebody who didn't live there and allowed me into a house that I owned anyway.
Michael was desperate to get into the property so he could give it a quick once-over and put it straight back on the rental market. His mate Andrew went along to give Michael a hand. But his perfect pad had been transformed into a horror home.
When we first went in, we found rubbish everywhere. Some sick on the floor, spit all up the walls, just rancid, horrifying.
What would you do if your home came crashing down around you?
The next thing I know, a massive thud, and I've been flung off my sofa along with the coffee table, and it just threw me across the room.
If your life was in danger in the one place you're meant to be safe.
And I see this car just there. It was just like a bomb's gone off.
Nine years ago, Shaz and Umar Farouk found the perfect family home to renovate for themselves and their 3 children.
When we first bought this house, it wasn't in very good shape. We've built it up ourselves, and bit by bit we've actually done a lot to it. So it's been one of those ideal homes that you could just mould and shape it how you wanted to.
The Farouks spent around £10,000 creating their perfect home. But perfection wasn't to last. The day began like any other. Umar was at work, the kids at school, and Shaz was catching up with a friend on the phone.
I was just sat for 2 seconds, and the next thing I know, I'm literally just thrown off it. I did hit the coffee table because the coffee table was thrown that way. And I've seen this black car in my living room. The engine was full on rev, and I thought it was just going to continue to go. The windows shattered, glass everywhere, there was just brickwork everywhere. The whole sofa was knocked forward because I was knocked off it. Oh, it's just horrible, horrible, horrible.
A driver had come off the road and plummeted down the hill, smashing into the front of the Farouk's house.
When I saw the car here and everything just shattered, and I honestly thought I'm gonna find the woman dead. The speed that she hit with, and I thought, Everything's just falling on her windscreen and she's crushed. Flung myself out of the door and opened her passenger side door, and I just looked at her and I said, "Are you okay?" And she nodded. She was obviously in shock herself, and she nodded. That's when I rang the emergency services.
The emergency services were soon on the scene, but for Shaz, the situation was far from under control.
She was sounding really panicked, and she was also crying. And I had no idea what had gone on. And then she told me exactly what happened, that the house is collapsing and the car has gone into the house.
Everything was all over the place. The door was smashed. There was obviously the window was smashed. It was just crazy, bricks everywhere.
The glass was all shattered and everything. I was scared about, obviously, the house and my mum, if she was okay or not.
The Farouks were left with a house on the brink of destruction.
The car was still there, so I didn't know what was going to happen. I thought the whole structure was going to collapse. I remember my neighbour saying to me, "Are you okay?" And I just sort of looked at them and I just went, "That's my house. That's my house."
And when the dust cleared, the family discovered the damage ran much deeper than they feared. Horror homes aren't just confined to the UK. Around 350,000 Brits move abroad each year, hoping for the perfect home in the sun. So what happens when, through no fault of your own, your perfect pad ends up being razed to the ground by the authorities?
We were just so dumbstruck.
If we don't get compensation, we'll have to go bankrupt.
Retired businessman Ken Pryor and his wife Helen had worked hard all their lives, and 13 years ago decided to spend their golden years in sunnier climes.
We moved out here really because of the weather. I've got a bad heart and I've got a bad chest, and the warm weather, of course, is ideal for my complaints.
We were introduced to a local builder who had a very good reputation.
We saw the floor plans of the house and thought that's the one we want. So we got the builder to go ahead and build it.
We didn't know anything about buying property in Spain, but we didn't come out as a pair of idiots. The house was 100% legal from start to finish.
A year later, the couple sold their family home and made the big move to Andalusia and their new 3-bedroom villa in the town of Vera.
As we opened the front door for the first time and we looked inside, I can remember me actually saying, "Wow, look at this." Everything was marble, brand new. We never had a house brand new before. It was just idyllic.
Life was good.
3 years into their life in the sun, youngest daughter Louisa was inspired to join them.
Mum and Dad were so happy out here and they just looked so healthy. So I thought, no, I'd come out and give it a go.
But the day after Louisa arrived, the Pryors got a call from a builder that would kick off a traumatic series of events.
We didn't realise there was anything wrong until we were asked to go to the town hall. There they presented us with a letter which said we had 15 days to knock the house down, and if we didn't, they would knock it down and charge us for that.
They contacted their solicitor, who reassured them their house was legal. But it wasn't that simple.
The regional government had been to court with the mayor of Vera, and between them they had held a secret court case. The judge had stamped demolition order.
What Helen and Len didn't know was that before the first brick was laid, the regional government had advised the local planners not to build. The land was designated rustic, and in Spain, that means you can't put a house on it. Helen and Len were determined to fight the demolition notice. The legal process was still ongoing when almost 2 years later, they were told a demolition date had been set.
On the morning of the demolition,
Len got up and he said, I'll make us a cup of tea. And we didn't have any water and we didn't have any electricity. He then looked out the front and saw the police everywhere.
Their beautiful Spanish home had cost them their life savings and their home in the UK. But this shocking day was about to get even more horrific.
I walked out into the garden and that's the last I remember of it. I just collapsed.
Imagine waking up to find your precious home soaking in rivers of sewage.
The sewage problem and the flooding has made me feel like I'm being drowned out.
Not once, not twice, but almost every time there is heavy rain. Bringing with it a host of unwelcome house guests.
It's like some sort of horror movie. You think, oh my God, no, it's going to flood now.
Nearly 6 years ago, nurse Carol Chalkley found her perfect pad, a 17th century timber-framed cottage in Essex. At just under 160 grand, it cost her all her savings. But it was the ideal place to come home to after a hard day's work.
I just felt really at home here when I came in. Yeah, just felt really happy and really warm to the place. Felt as if I'd got my dream home that I really wanted, in the countryside, fields around me. Yeah, perfectly happy here.
With views out over the fields and a beautiful historic home, Carol had what she always wanted. But after a few months of bliss in the cottage, her sanctuary began to sour.
I moved in the October, and within the February, I was flooded out here. There was about a foot of water up to the back door. I just kind of thought to myself, it's rained heavily, so this is a one-off problem.
But the problem did not go away.
Since I've moved here, each year's got worse. Quite overwhelming, really. In the winter, it happens a few times a month. You're waking up to water at your back door. It would be flooded kind of up to here, like literally up to here. This would just be like a swimming pool, basically.
It was while renovating the garden that Carol made a shocking discovery.
When I uncovered all of the crazy paving, there was this manhole here, which is a sewage manhole. So you've got pipes under there that are all the excrement. The capacity was too much, and it was right up to the back door. It's not nice. Whatever's gone down someone's toilet is coming up into your garden. Nothing feels clean. Knowing that you've got urine and excrement going into your damp coarse brick, underneath your floorboards and staying there, it was really nasty.
And to make things worse, they're not just hers, they are shared with her neighbours too.
Even when the flooding's gone down, when the cat and dog go out, they've been walking in urine and excrement on the shingle. And then the cat has got that on its paws and it's going through the house. Everything just feels dirty.
Carol had done all her research before she moved in.
I knew this property was a listed building. I knew that it was old. I knew that it would have some things that may need doing. I know what to look for in a survey. It came back and said it wasn't a flood area. There'd been no history reported of any flooding. All of that was all clear.
Sitting on the east coast of England, Essex is one of the driest counties in the country. But in the winter months, Carol's drains and sewage can overflow.
Where that timber frame is here, it's actually lapping into there. It's really wet. It's green because it just can't dry out. It doesn't get a chance to dry out. It's urine, so that's going to be causing a lot of damage.
Carol was worried about what this meant for the sole plate, the foundation beam of her house.
So I pulled that off and had a little look behind there. It was decaying. If that big beam is eroding, then your house isn't structurally sound anymore.
The sole plate is the base of the frame, and the frame is the structure of the building. If the sole plate rots and deteriorates, it means that ultimately the frame will move. I would normally expect a timber sole plate in a property of this age to still be reasonably sound. This isn't. So the flooding is a serious concern and needs to be resolved.
With her home rotting away on a sea of human waste, Carol thought things couldn't get any worse. But then the rats moved in.
At first, I was just like, what is that smell? Over years, I've got to know that that smell is a dead rat.
Michael Mason put his heart and soul into doing up his first ever home. But when squatters refused to leave, his lovely house was destroyed.
Please, stop paying the rent.
Totally wrecked. Horrible.
But it wasn't until he got the squatters evicted that Michael could see the full extent of the damage they'd caused.
So, I'll give you the tour, may as well start in the front room. I'm still a little bit speechless every time I come in.
The wooden floors Michael slaved over for weeks were ruined.
These were in good order, and this is kind of an echo of it. So to see it go from that to that is disappointing.
There was not 1 inch of the house untouched by the trail of destruction left behind.
I would have thought just naturally by the amount of water that would be splashed around in a bathroom that it couldn't end up like this, but it's just absolutely disgusting. I mean, look at that. I mean, what is that? I can't work out how he's managed to get this so filthy up here, unless he's been, like, dragging trees in from the garden and chopping them up in the bathroom or something weird like that. I'm baffled. I'm just looking at this rug on the floor here, and I'm just hoping that it's not there to cover up something even more disgusting. It's actually nailed down. Oh, God. It's just absolutely full of cans and bottles and bloody God knows what. Ugh.
The damage done to the house has not only hit Michael emotionally, but in his pocket too.
Financially, the cost to me in the 10 months is probably around about £5,500–6,000, something like that. The cost for going through the courts has probably been about another 500 quid in court fees so far and 500 quid so far in legal fees. And then I've got the cost of getting it sorted to look forward to on top of that.
After his battle to evict the squatters, the coffers were empty. With no money to hire help, it was up to Michael and his friends to clean up.
We've just been hiring lots of skips and just clearing it all out as much as possible. And all the floors were ruined, so we've had to scrape all that up and scrub and scrub. It's looking a lot better.
It's taken 3 months of hard work, but Michael's home is now nearly back to its former glory.
There's another couple of days painting to do. Some electrical work still needs doing, a little bit, lights in the kitchen, things like that.
In total, getting his house back to anywhere near what it was first like has cost Michael nearly £10,000.
Yeah, it is a big effect on me, yeah. It's my, I had to dip into my savings for it.
After battling to reclaim the home he so loved, Michael's ready to draw a line under it all.
I'm not interested in renting it out. No, I'd just like to sell it now and move on.
In Spain, Helen and Len were facing losing their retirement villa. Unbeknownst to the couple and before the bill began, the regional government had told the planners that the house wouldn't be allowed because it meant developing on a designated no-build area. The planning permission they'd been given 5 years earlier from the local town hall had been withdrawn, and their house was going to be knocked down.
You can't imagine how frustrating it can be to know you've done nothing wrong and still have officials just trampling all over you. There were so many people outside the house and the police just moved us aside, opened the gates, and the demolition machines came in.
It was an incredibly stressful time for the couple.
Both Mum and Dad were getting more and more sort of agitated, and you could see that Dad wasn't looking very well.
It was all too much for Len in particular.
I walked out into the garden to see the people at the gate, all the police and the bulldozer, and that's the last I remember of it. I just collapsed.
Somebody called out and said, your dad's collapsed. And I'm shouting at the police, saying that they had to do something to help. It seemed ages before the ambulance actually came. It was very scary. Sorry, I brought it out because of Dad. I went to hospital with Dad. His blood pressure was through the roof because he's got a hole in his heart. It was a big worry.
Helen was left to cope with the task of retrieving their belongings before the bulldozer moved in. And that's when the locals and neighbours dashed in to help.
We were told that the regional government were going to give us some time to take personal possessions out of the house. Within minutes, massive amount of Spanish people we'd never seen before had arrived, and they virtually emptied the house. If we hadn't been able to empty the house, we would have lost 43 years of our life and our life savings.
But then the moment they feared finally arrived.
Our solicitor said the regional government have had enough, and I was herded outside the gates, and the bulldozers moved in, and they started knocking the house down from the master bedroom upstairs and just worked their way down.
The house had cost £300,000 to build, but was worth double that when the bulldozer moved in. With Len hospitalised for several days and daughter Louisa's house under renovation, Helen had to find somewhere to stay.
We had nowhere to go. We had the clothes we were standing up in and nothing else. Everything else had gone into storage.
And their ordeal wasn't over. A long, hard battle in the Spanish courts lay ahead.
The only way for anybody to fight something like this is to get angry about it.
Carol Chalkley's £160,000 dream home in Essex spends some of the winter soaking in sewage.
It's been about 6 years nearly now of constantly battling against having a swimming pool of sewage coming up against your house.
The sewer's regular floods have swirled human excrement into her back garden, causing serious structural damage to Carol's 300-year-old wood-framed cottage.
This house could rot from the bottom up.
And to add to her nightmare, Carol's house has had some rather unwelcome visitors. Rats.
At first, I was just like, what is that smell? Over years, I've got to know that that smell is a dead rat. When it does flood, they're underneath the house, they're in the internal walls. If they haven't managed to climb up the wall, they get drowned underneath the floorboards, and then they decay, and then they smell. They're actually chewing their way into my house. I've got a big hole here. I haven't even attempted to block that up just yet, because I know that if I block that up, at the moment with the situation still not being dealt with the sewer, they'll chew through another area. So I'll leave it open. That way, if they do come in, I know that's where they're coming because it's open, and the dog can go straight there.
Luckily for Carol, her dog Patch is a Jack Russell, a breed known as excellent ratters.
This is Patch. He's the local ratter. He doesn't eat them. He just does a little shake of them and sees them off.
As the room that bears the brunt of the problem, her kitchen is now a no-go area.
This bit of the house is an absolute nightmare because of that little drain, which is directly outside. It seeps in through into this corner. I actually had to fill in this because this was a trench of mud where the water had come in and kind of eroded it. If I hadn't have filled that, then I'd have a little river in the kitchen. And there's still a hole in the corner, which is where some of the rats come in. I can't do anything about that yet because there's pipe work there. I guess because I know that this is sewage water that's flooding into here, it feels just dirty. I can bleach and I can hoover, but underneath the flooring, I can't get under there and take away the excrement and take away the urine and take away the dead rats. I know that they're all still under there.
The local water company say that many different organisations share responsibility of the wider drainage network. They say they do regular cleaning and maintenance and have done a number of things to minimise the risk of heavy rain causing flooding to Carol's property. They also always offer to carry out a free clean-up of the property affected, and they have undertaken specific measures to minimise the risk of sewage problems and are working on a more permanent long-term solution in the area.
I'm quite a determined person, so I will continue until it's all rectified. I've got half of my dream house rather than all of it.
For 11 months, Christine and Alan Longworth have had their peace and quiet shattered by a constant stream of lorries using a waste site that opened close to their home.
It's ruined our life. Definitely ruined our life. We haven't got a life here anymore. We're existing. Well, we're not even existing. We're just getting up in the morning and it's like we're like robots. We just do what we have to do. I never sit still. I'm continually on the move.
This went on for months, until finally the council banned the company from working at night. But the lorries during the day brought a new irritation.
The 27th of December this year, I had a house full of people. They came at 12:15. I'd put a small buffet on. They were all family. We had the doors open and the kids were running in and out. We started to get a smell, a really bad smell. And my visitors actually went within an hour and a half because they couldn't stand it. The smell from rotting food.
The lorries are literally driving this family into the ground.
It's making us ill. We're actually snapping at one another, and we've never been like that. You know, it's as though it's here 24 hours a day. No matter what conversation we have in this house, it reverts back to the wagons. And when you talk about the wagons, everybody starts snapping. That's no good. That's not family life. That, to us, is living a nightmare.
Christine and Alan feel trapped. And to make things worse, they heard that the company could appeal and apply for a 24-hour licence. Although this hasn't happened yet.
We're petrified of them getting that 24-hour licence. Our lives won't be worth living.
If they get the 24-hour licence, we might as well throw ourselves under the trucks.
Shaz Farouk's life was literally turned upside down when a car smashed through the front of her house.
The next thing I know, a massive thud, and I've been flung off my sofa.
A car had come off the road, careered through the Farouk's garden and into their home.
She must have been trying to park over here and obviously lost control somehow. Went all the way down, through here, full throttle, all the way down and straight into my house. Here, all the way through.
Miraculously, Shaz, nor the driver, who we were unable to contact, was seriously injured.
When I got here, they were trying to pull the car out. A policeman asked me who I am, and I told them this is my house, and they started telling me what had happened.
It wasn't just the mess in the front room that needed clearing up. The police were worried the crash could have rendered the entire house ready to collapse.
The whole of the front is gone, the window is gone, up to the first floor tilings. It's all collapsed. I speak to the council surveyor, and he told me that the lintel hasn't moved and they have secured it.
The structure was deemed sound, but the house was an absolute mess. Shaz was discharged from hospital to spend a night she'd never forget.
I couldn't sleep at all. I just wasn't myself. It just all keeps coming back to me. I woke up in the middle of the night and she was just staring at me. And I was like, why are you staring at me? And she's just like, I can't stop staring at you. I think just the whole shock just got to her. And I think she just realised that she was very lucky to be where she is and that she is still alive.
Now, 3 weeks on, the home is secured by a temporary wall, but the family's troubles aren't over. The house's supporting walls are developing faults on a daily basis.
We've got cracks running all the way through here, all the way up, going all the way down that way. The outside, the porch here has to be replaced because the joints have all come apart. That has to be dug up and done again, the front wall, so we'll have to start from the foundations. We're not looking at a week's job, we're looking at a month's job. So the whole house will be disrupted, the children will be disrupted, everything will be disrupted.
One mistake by a stranger has resulted in a repair bill of around £25,000 and has left the family on edge in their own home.
The sound of the engine does haunt me. I find it really hard to sit on the sofa at the moment because, one, I can't see anything out the window. And if I do hear even a truck passing or someone driving their engine to go up the hill or anything like that, I do sort of become a bit, oh, what is that? It's just really shocking that this has happened to your house. Like you really think you are safe to stay in your house, but you just never know what can happen.
In Spain, Helen and Len's dream retirement villa had been demolished by order of the authorities.
From day one, it was our home, and it stayed that way up until the day it was knocked down. When the house actually started tumbling down, it was a surreal experience.
It took 4 days to reduce the house to rubble, leaving nothing but the concrete base.
This was the front door. There were pillars here leading into the door, the lounge, dining room, kitchen, stairs here somewhere leading up to the master suite upstairs.
Even to this day, we really do not know the reason why they knocked it down.
Their house was just the first in a series of similar demolitions in Spain. For the past 7 years, Len and Helen have been fighting to get compensation.
I think we've been to court 6 times so far and won each time. But then the regional government just appeal again and go to yet another court. The last court case said the land could only be used for forestry, farming or animals.
Our boundaries are tight up against other people's properties that have not been touched. It just doesn't make sense.
But having moved to Spain lock, stock and barrel, they are determined to stay.
This spot definitely filled the bill for us, didn't it?
Yeah, that's why we're still here, really. We don't want to leave it.
After living 70 years and working hard, the land's all they have. This is where they still want to be.
With their dream home now just a memory, they've been reduced to living in what was previously their garage.
The land was worth €110,000 when we bought it, and now it can only be used for forestry, farming or animals. It's probably worth nothing.
After years of fighting, there is a small ray of hope on the horizon. Maura Hillen, who is president of a committee set up to save similar homes in the area, offers support.
Good to see you again. They've shown a sort of, I suppose, for want of a better word, a sort of Dunkirk spirit in terms of how they're dealing with the situation, and it has been decided definitively that the Town Council of Vera is responsible to compensate this couple, and once that compensation amount is agreed, they will then have to fight for that compensation.
Helen and Len are still counting the cost of what they hoped would be a peaceful retirement.
We lost more than just money.
We've also lost 7 years of our life through fighting this.
I have been angry, really angry, day and night for 7 years. And we really, really want somebody to say, we made a mistake and it shouldn't have happened, and it won't happen again. And that would be the best thing.